What happens when a singer proves she can build a massive audience without depending on America's Got Talent? Because Lucy Thomas may have done exactly that. She never needed the golden buzzer, never needed a primetime AGT storyline, and never needed Simon Cowell or a panel of celebrity judges to define her career. Instead, Lucy built something much quieter, and perhaps much more powerful: a loyal global audience, a growing music catalog, millions of views, more than 1 million YouTube subscribers, albums that kept arriving, live performances, merchandise, direct fan support, and even a West End stage. But there is one part of the story that needs to be separated from the hype. People can easily describe Lucy Thomas as having a multi-million-dollar music empire, but there is no reliable public financial record proving that Lucy personally has a multi-million-dollar fortune. What we can prove is something different. She has built an independent music ecosystem that keeps expanding. And that may be the more fascinating story. Today, we are breaking down how Lucy Thomas turned a teenage talent show appearance into a long-term music career, why AGT was never the missing piece, and how her strategy quietly transformed attention into an audience she could take with her. The first thing to understand about Lucy Thomas is that the AGT comparison can actually be misleading. Her story was already moving before America's Got Talent entered the conversation. Lucy became publicly known through The Voice Kids UK in 2018, where she reached the semi-finals. According to biographical sources, her television appearance was followed by a recording opportunity with Cavendish Records, setting the foundation for the release of her debut album, Premiere, in 2019. That sequence is important because Lucy did not disappear after the television spotlight faded. She kept recording, she kept releasing music, and she kept developing an identity built around powerful interpretations of familiar songs, musical theater material, classical crossover, and eventually original material. That is very different from the traditional talent show formula. On a show like AGT, the television moment can become the entire product. One audition goes viral, the judges react, the audience becomes emotionally invested, and suddenly millions of people know the performer's name. But Lucy's career demonstrates another route. Instead of relying on one enormous television explosion, she accumulated momentum over time. Premiere was followed by Encore, then Timeless, Destiny, and Beyond, with later projects including the Rosie musical recording and Portrait. That consistency matters. A viral moment can introduce a singer, a catalog can keep that singer relevant, and Lucy increasingly built the second. The more songs she recorded, the more opportunity she created for viewers to discover her through different performances. Someone could find Hallelujah. Another listener could discover Unchained Melody. Someone else could come across I Will Always Love You, The Greatest Love of All, or one of her musical theater performances. The entry points multiplied. And that may be the first major lesson from Lucy Thomas. She did not build her career around one audition. She built it around a growing library of reasons to keep listening. Here's where the story becomes much bigger than television. Lucy Thomas gradually turned her music into a direct-to-audience business. Her official website states that she passed 1 million YouTube subscribers in early 2025, a milestone she celebrated after years of building her channel. That number is significant, not because 1 million subscribers automatically means millions of dollars. It does not. Subscriber counts are not bank statements. Views are not the same thing as profit, and online popularity cannot by itself prove personal net worth. But 1 million subscribers does demonstrate something extremely valuable: reach. Lucy had created a direct relationship with a huge global audience without needing AGT to repeatedly place her in front of viewers. Her official music channel became a destination in its own right. That is a major shift in power. Instead of waiting for television executives to decide when audiences should see her, Lucy could upload a performance whenever she wanted. A new cover could introduce her voice to another generation. A new album could be promoted directly to existing fans. A concert announcement could reach people already emotionally connected to the music. And a new project could be communicated without waiting for a television network. This is one reason the phrase music empire can be emotionally tempting, even when the financial claim itself is unproven. The empire is not necessarily a giant pile of cash. It is an ecosystem. YouTube, streaming, albums, live performances, direct fan relationships, merchandise, Patreon, private and corporate bookings, and other music-related activities. Lucy's official site currently promotes bookings for private and corporate events around the world, while also highlighting Patreon as another way fans can support her work. That creates multiple doors into the same career, and that is a much more modern model of music success. AGT can generate attention, but an audience that voluntarily comes back can generate something even more important: longevity. If there is one type of content that explains Lucy Thomas's rise, it is the emotional ballad. Lucy's interpretation of Hallelujah became one of the defining pieces of her online presence. Sources tracking her career have documented tens of millions of YouTube views for the performance, and her channel has continued to expand far beyond that single song. The important detail is not simply that the song received huge attention, it is why the song works. Hallelujah is already emotionally familiar to audiences around the world. So, Lucy was not asking viewers to understand a completely unknown artist singing an unfamiliar song. She was giving listeners an emotionally recognizable doorway, and then her voice became the reason they stayed. That strategy repeats throughout her catalog. Unchained Melody is another perfect example. Her official music video, released in 2024, has accumulated millions of views, with the official YouTube listing showing more than 11 million views in the latest index data. Again, there is a lesson here. Lucy understands the power of songs that already carry emotional history. The audience knows the melody. The audience understands the sentiment. The audience may already have a personal memory attached to the song. Then, Lucy becomes the voice attached to that memory. That is incredibly powerful, and it helps explain why her online strategy can work even without AGT. She is not beginning every performance from zero. The song itself already has cultural recognition. Her voice becomes the fresh experience, and when the performance connects, the audience has a reason to share it. That is how a cover can become more than a cover. It becomes discovery. Someone hears Lucy for the first time, they click another video, then another, then they find an album, then a concert, then a new release, and eventually the casual viewer becomes a fan. That journey is much harder to create than a single viral clip, but once it exists, it becomes an asset. And that may be the real secret behind Lucy Thomas's growth. She has repeatedly turned familiar songs into entry points for a larger relationship with her audience. This is where we need to slow down and separate fact from rumor. There are online narratives that can make Lucy's career sound almost overnight. One viral performance, millions of views, huge audience, massive wealth. But that is not how the documented timeline looks. The record shows gradual expansion. Television exposure came first, then a record deal, then albums, then a growing digital audience, then major online milestones, then live performances and larger theatrical opportunities. That is a very different story, and in some ways it is more impressive, because viral fame is unstable. An artist can dominate the internet for 3 weeks and disappear. Lucy's catalog, on the other hand, has continued to produce new opportunities. In 2025, Lucy publicly announced her first original mainstream pop song, Don't Walk Away, describing her excitement about the release and the response from fans. That moment matters because it shows artistic expansion. For years, one of Lucy's strongest lanes was interpreting songs audiences already knew. But original music asks a different question. Will people come back for Lucy herself, not simply for the song she is covering? That is a major transition in any singer's career. It is also one of the biggest differences between being a talented performer and becoming a sustainable recording artist. A performer can become famous singing other people's songs. A long-term artist eventually needs an identity that belongs to them. Lucy appears to understand that, and the evolution is visible. Her more recent catalog includes original material alongside established classics, musical theater recordings, collaborations, and contemporary releases. So when people ask why she did not need AGT, perhaps the answer is simple: because she was already learning how to own the audience relationship. Television gave Lucy her early exposure, but digital media helped her retain the audience, and that distinction is enormous. Then came another chapter that made Lucy Thomas's career look less like a YouTube success story and more like a serious entertainment career: the stage. Lucy's official site announced her involvement in Rosie, a historical musical based on the true story of Rosie Boot. The production had been in development for more than a decade, and Lucy was announced to play Rosie for a West End gala performance at the Adelphi Theatre in March 2026. This was not simply another upload, it was another platform. A theater stage demands different skills. The audience is physically present. The performance has to work in real time. The role requires character, movement, storytelling, and vocal consistency. And in March 2026, Theatre Weekly reviewed the production and specifically highlighted Lucy Thomas's vocal clarity in the role of Rosie Boot. That is significant because it shows Lucy moving further into a space where her career is no longer defined only by internet performance videos. She can operate across platforms: recorded music, YouTube, live concerts, musical theater, private events, fan-supported content, and merchandise. The business logic is straightforward. Every platform adds another way for audiences to encounter the artist, and every successful platform strengthens the others. A person discovers Lucy through YouTube. That person listens to an album. The album leads them to a live performance. The live performance leads them to another project. Another listener discovers her through theater. That listener searches for her recordings. Suddenly, the career becomes circular. And that is exactly what a strong modern music brand is supposed to do. It creates multiple paths back to the artist. AGT can create a spectacular front door, but Lucy has built several doors. Now we arrive at the most controversial part of the title. Did Lucy Thomas actually build a multi-million-dollar music empire? Here is the honest answer. There is no reliable public financial evidence that lets us state that as a confirmed fact. There is no publicly verified figure that establishes Lucy's net worth at multiple millions of dollars. There is no publicly audited financial report showing the total value of her music business. And that distinction matters, because internet entertainment stories often transform audience metrics into financial claims. 1 million subscribers becomes millionaire. Millions of views become multi-million-dollar empire. A successful album becomes massive wealth. But those are assumptions. Revenue can come from advertising, streaming, physical sales, licensing, tickets, bookings, subscriptions, merchandise, sponsorships, and other sources. Expenses can also be substantial. Production costs, musicians, video production, marketing, management, distribution, travel, taxes, venue costs, and business overhead. So millions of views do not automatically equal millions of dollars in personal earnings. What we can say is that Lucy has built a commercially diversified music presence. Her official shop sells multiple albums and merchandise, while her website promotes bookings and Patreon, and her catalog continues to grow. That is real. The audience is real. The catalog is real. The commercial channels are real. The West End appearance is real. The 1 million subscriber milestone is real. The multi-million-dollar personal fortune is not publicly established. And ironically, making that distinction does not make her story weaker. It makes it stronger. Because Lucy Thomas does not need an exaggerated financial claim to prove that she has built something remarkable. Her career history is already enough. So why does this story keep coming back to AGT? Because America's Got Talent represents the ultimate shortcut in the public imagination. One stage, one audition, millions watching. Instant recognition. It is understandable why people think every powerful vocalist should eventually appear there. But Lucy's journey shows that there is more than one route to the top. She already had television exposure. She already had a record deal. She already had a growing fan base. She already had a catalog. And then she developed her own digital distribution machine. By 2025, Lucy was celebrating more than 1 million YouTube subscribers, while her official site was also promoting her music, bookings, fan community, and new releases. That means AGT was never essential to the next stage of the story. Would AGT have expanded her exposure? Possibly. Could a major television appearance have introduced her to millions of new viewers? Absolutely. But that is different from saying she needed it. She had already built something. And this is where Lucy's story becomes especially interesting for aspiring artists. There is no single gatekeeper anymore. A singer does not necessarily need one label, one television producer, one competition, one judge, or one giant viral audition. An artist can build an audience piece by piece, one song at a time, one video at a time, one concert at a time, one fan at a time. Lucy Thomas is a useful example of that model. Presenter TV dynamics. Her career began with a talent show, but it did not remain dependent on talent shows. That distinction is crucial. The Voice kids may have opened the door. Lucy herself kept walking. And maybe that is the real reason this story matters. Not because Lucy Thomas has a publicly proven multi-million-dollar fortune. She does not. At least there is no reliable evidence that allows us to make that statement responsibly. The bigger story is control. Lucy controls a growing catalog. She controls a direct digital connection with a huge audience. She releases music through established channels. She sells physical products. She performs live. She accepts private and corporate bookings. She communicates directly with fans. She has explored Patreon. She has moved into original music. And she has now expanded into major theatrical work. Her official website presents a career that has evolved from school performances to national television to a record deal to millions of online listeners and more than 1 million YouTube subscribers, and ultimately to the West End stage. That is not the profile of someone waiting for AGT to discover her. That is the profile of an artist continuing to discover what she can become. And perhaps that is the most important takeaway. Lucy Thomas did not need America's Got Talent to become Lucy Thomas. She needed songs that connected, an audience willing to listen, the discipline to keep releasing, and the patience to build something that could survive after the viral moment disappeared. So, was the phrase multi-million-dollar music empire exaggerated? As a literal financial statement, yes, it is not publicly verified. But as a description of a rapidly expanding independent music ecosystem, there is a very real story underneath the hype. Because Lucy Thomas has already done something that many talented singers never managed to do. She turned attention into an audience. She turned an audience into a community. And she turned that community into a career that now reaches far beyond the television stage, where her public journey began. And that may be why AGT was never the missing piece. The stage was only the beginning. The real empire was the audience.